Good afternoon. I'm Apostle TB Walker. Certainly glad to have you here with us today. Listen, I want to talk to you today about moments, not missing moments. There are moments that are rising out of very difficult situations. And oftentimes, when you've been through so much, when you're just continually struggling, you kind of expect that the moment that's going to arise is going to get you out of what you're in and not going to be more challenging than what you're going through. But I want to assure you that sometimes the moment that arises at some of the most challenging times of your life and will require you to step out and take some risks that just seem impossible. We're talking about a story today about a young queen by the name of Esther, who has been through lots in her life and is now at a place of some comfort, some quiet, and now she's being asked to step out of her comfort zone. And that's exactly what God is doing in this very dark time that we're living in right now. One of the king's primary advisors by the name of Haman had gotten mad at a particular Jewish man by the name of Mordecai because Mordecai refused to bow down to him, didn't give him the respect that he wanted. And this man had such a need for, he was so self-important, so self-indulgent. It was all about him, that idea that somebody would not bow down to me, and the need to actually get vengeance for that was so overpowering that he convinced the king that issue a decree to kill all the Jews. He now wants to commit genocide, and he has power in his hands and influence and the ear of the king to actually begin to develop a decree that says that all the Jews shall be killed. And in that land, once a decree had gone out from the king, that decree could not in any way be taken back. It could not be reversed. Now, this persecution would have seemed like it materialized out of nowhere. If you were Jewish and you would have seen these things tacked up on the walls and on the doorways of the churches, well, at least the doorways of the temples or the doorways of the places where they would have gotten their information. This would have been something that would have been catastrophic. But what you have here is a reminder that they are not Persian. Every now and then, that's exactly what happens. No matter how comfortable everything has been, no matter how comfortable everybody seems with each other, there's a reminder that comes in terms of what your true identity really is. Those reminders come out of seemingly nowhere, but there are events that happen that will just shake you to remind you that you're in the world, but not of the world. God used the arrogance of this man Haman to remind the Jews in that land that they were in Persia, but they were not of Persia. Mordecai heard this decree, so he began to send one of his servants, one of the messengers by the name of Hathach, to his niece Esther. Esther is the queen, and he about to ask Esther to step out, and to ask for mercy. Now, this sets the stage for what is a pivotal moment. And that's what I'm talking about. There are moments. The peril is real, but God has already put in motion exactly what his people need, which is favor. We look for money, we look for human influence, and we don't realize that it's the favor of God that makes us rich. It's the favor of God that gets us over bridges that have been torn down. It's the favor of God that allows us to walk even in the shadows of death. So this favor is real, but so is the situation. Esther believes that she is positioned and that her position is where the favor lies. She believes that her anonymity is where the favor lies. Nobody knows who I am. I am safe right now. And I know that in my safety, God is not going to call me out of my safety. But I want you to understand that many of you are in positions where you are a plant, that God has placed you in certain situations to bless multiple people. The king had no idea that his beloved queen was a Jew. She herself doesn't realize that she's been positioned for this very moment. One of the things that Mordecai is going to later say to her is that, how do you know that you have not come into the kingdom for a time such as this? How do you know that the reason why you have that job, The reason why you're in that position, the reason why you got that promotion was not just because God just, wanted to pat you on the back, not because God just put you in a position where you can take care of your family and put them in a better place. No, God oftentimes places us in strategic positions behind enemy lines in times of comfort so that he's going to unveil us at the very last moment. We are surrounded by adversaries, but we are comfortable. Surrounded by enemies, but nobody's coming after us. And then at a moment, God comes and says, now is the time to speak up. That's why I've inserted you on that school board. That's why I put you on the city council. Listen, you made no waves, made no noise, and now God begins to say, cry loud and spare not. This is not about her comfort. This is about her saving God's people. And God is going to use, I promise you this, dangerous situations to produce greatness in us. Just like God was using a dangerous situation to bring out greatness. Sometimes it's the squeezing that brings out the juice that's really in you, that you think that you may have exhausted everything that you have. You think you may be at the end of your rope. But God is using you in a position where you think you're powerless. Listen, Esther is a favorite concubine in a large harem. Though she is designated as queen, she has no real power. There's nothing that she can say or do. She is still, no matter what, a crown plaything for the king. This queen has no political power. She has no ability to write decrees, to make demands. She has no power whatsoever to actually void any of the things that the king has already decreed. So if it's already set in stone, what can she do? But here comes God using Mordecai for the reason that God is using so many ministers today. The reason why God is using men and women of God today is the same reason why he's using Mordecai, to interrupt our comfort zone. That we are comfortable in our homes. We're comfortable in our jobs. We're comfortable in our placement in society. We're comfortable watching the news and watching everybody else get crazy. We're comfortable watching all the things that are out there. But as long as it doesn't come near our dwelling, we feel like it's fine. We're comfortable just sitting back and watching what is happening in the world, never thinking that God's going to call us off the bench, call us out of our places on the couch, and saying the day of being a couch potato watching from the sidelines is over. Listen, let me tell you something. She is insulated. She is comfortable. She doesn't have a Jewish name. Her Jewish name, her real name is Hadassah. But she's been given a new name. This new name is Esther, which means star. It talks about the god Ishtar. And so she is comfortable in her Persian environment. And I want you to understand something. That's what's happening with so many people right now. As we look at what's going on in the news, as we look at what's going on with the president, as we look at what's going on with our lawmakers, we don't realize that God has people planted that are going to rise and shine at this very same time, that are among the masses, that are inserted in jobs, inserted in certain places in the marketplace for this time. As we look and say, God, who's going to run for you? Who's going to go for you? Who's going to stand for you? God is trying to let you know you are not by yourself. Elijah was in a cave and he said, God, I'm all by myself. And God said, no, I have 7,000 people that have not bowed in the. I've got 7,000 people that I planted in strategic situations that are going to rise at the sound of my trumpet. And I want you to understand something. God is doing right now in our government, in your society, in our school systems, in every system. God has got some people that he's already planted behind the scenes that are going to rise up and change the tide, turn the tide of what the enemy means for evil. I promise you, God is going to use that for good. Listen, she was blessed to be hidden in this time. But guess what? It's not the circumstance that's calling her out. It's God. God is the one that's pulling back the covers. God is the one that's about to expose the greatness that's in her, that her position does not determine who she is. She's a queen, so she's positioned next to the king, but she is the one that God is dealing with. That though she does not have the name in the natural, though she does not have the ability in the natural, in the spiritual realm, the true power here for God, for God's plan, for God's purpose to keep his people safe, to keep his people alive, is this woman who thinks that she is just a plaything. This woman who thinks that she's just nothing. And I'm not talking about getting your head all pumped up and just, you giving yourself affirmations every day in the mirror. No, I'm saying I want you to understand something. That when God wants to use you, your position in the earth does not matter. Your position in the spirit is what matters. Your position in the kingdom is what matters. You must know that right now you're seated in heavenly places. That's what God is talking about. And he's about to roll back the covers on some people right now. Her true identity will not be hidden any longer. And I want you to get that in your spirit, that God is speaking to you now, trying to let you know, listen, I know who you are. And I know where you are, and who you are is not going to be hidden. I've not given you all that I've given you just for the living room. I'm not giving you all that I've given you just for you to come up with ideas on your own. No, I have an idea for you already. I have a design for you already, and I have a job for you already. The steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord, and God is ordering your steps right now, that you are going to break out of an identity that people thought you had. They thought they knew you. Everybody looking around here thought they knew Esther. Esther followed the rules. Esther did not break any rules. She did not make any waves. Esther's name is not mentioned anytime before this. When she settles in her position, she's calmly, continuously doing her job. But it's her true identity that God's going to use to bless her, not the one that people know. And I'm telling you right now, people don't know who you are. God's about to bring about a circumstance. He's about to bring about a situation to bring forth your true identity. Listen, everybody thought they knew David, the shepherd boy, until Goliath came. And God now begins to bring about a big, huge problem. God allows a major issue. He allows a giant to come in the land for one reason, to expose the identity of David. They have no idea that that's a king. They have no idea that that's a giant slayer. They have no idea that that's a bear and a lion killer. They have no idea who he is. He's carrying around a cheese wheel for his brothers and for the captains of the host. He's carrying around a cheese wheel because he's the least in his father's house. He is the one who has been forgotten. But I want you to understand something. God has not forgotten you. God has not forgotten your true identity. God has not forgotten the plan. He says, I alone know the thoughts I think towards you. Those are thoughts of peace, not evil, to give you an expected end. You don't have to worry about your end. You don't have to worry about what you see. You don't have to worry about how you are going to make it happen. God is saying, I am going to give you this expected end. It's unexpected to you, but it's expected by God. Esther must be shocked when she gets this message from her uncle saying, come out wherever you are. I mean, I thought you had tucked me away so I'd be safe. Yes, but now God has need of you. You've been tucked away and kept away for a long period of time. You've been kept away from lots of pains and hurts for a long period of time. You suffered and gone through, and your wounds are healed. And now God is about to call you out. Here's what Hathach said. Hathach reported to Esther what Mordecai told her. And Esther said, she instructed him to say, all the king's officials and the people of the royal provinces know this, that for any man or woman who approaches the king in the inner court without being summoned by the king, they have but one law, that they be put to death, unless the king extends the gold scepter to them and spares their lives. But 30 days have passed since I was called to go to the king. Listen, we are in a unique and profound time. She's letting him know this can't be right. The timing can't be right, because you know what happens if he summons you, if you go before the king and you're not summoned. This is just instant death. How can this be a plan? And on top of that, the king has not called me for like 30 days. So if you're talking about somebody who has the king's ear, it can't be me. If you're talking about somebody who's positioned with favor, it cannot be me. If you're talking about somebody who's going to be an overcomer, in this situation right here, this can't be me. Listen, we are in a unique and profound time in history. We're in the very beginning of the church age. You'll remember that the saints were persecuted by the government and the populace. But now we see a government and false prophets converging together under the guise of Christianity that aim to persecute the church through perversion, through deception, and through lies. And these are the people that have the biggest platforms. These are people that have all the money to bring about, to promote politics in the church, to bring about fear tactics in the church, to bring about deception aimed at separating the church into so many small little pieces that we are not one cohesive group. But I want you to remember this. God said, upon this rock, I'll build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. The church cannot die, but don't be deceived at all. The danger is real. People are dying for the gospel all over the world. Thank God for the internet. We're getting to see what's happening in Nigeria. We're getting to see what's happening in Sudan. We're getting to see what's happening all over the world. There is persecution in multiple areas of our planet on people based upon the fact that they call upon the name of the Lord. And let me tell you something. It's not just about physical harm, but many people are falling away and being destroyed in the spirit. And I'm telling you right now, God is calling us to take some big risk in his service. And there's absolutely no guarantee that everybody that steps out and risk it all for the Lord are going to live through their challenges. You're going to live eternally. But this thing is about to get real. Jesus says, many are the afflictions of the righteous. Many are the afflictions of the righteous. You know what that means? That means that the only affliction, or even the greatest affliction, is not death. There are going to be many, many types of afflictions, and we're watching it being released in the earth right now. Afflictions because of who you are. Identity afflictions that are coming to strip people down. Listen, if you flay a man, that means you're taking off that man's skin, where people are being flayed in the spirit, where who they are and their identity is being ripped off of them, that it's being torn away. People who did not have a strong hold on who they. But I want you to know something. We're going to have an opportunity to share in some of these afflictions. We're going to have an opportunity to stand in courageousness in the face of huge challenges and difficulties. Listen, it's difficult to fathom the position that Esther was in. And the same position she was in is a position that many of us are going to be in. If she goes directly to the king without being summoned, she's going to die. And what makes things more dicey is what she said. I've fallen out of favor, I think. He hasn't called for me for 30 days. So the question comes, who am I? Who is she? Who's this little girl to face the power of Persia's might? Who's she to actually change Haman, who is the advisor to the king? I'm his queen, but that's not the queen like we think of a queen. She's not a co-equal. She's not a co-regent. She's got a crown on because he thinks she's beautiful. But this doesn't mean I respect what she says. He doesn't know. She doesn't know what he's going to say. So we got to keep it real here. And listen, in keeping it real, one of the things that I want you to think about is what Mordecai said to her. She lays all this out to Mordecai, and Mordecai says, don't think that because you are in the king's house, you alone of all the Jews will escape. And I want you to see how hardcore that may seem. But, we sometimes need to be extremely upfront in exhorting one another to do the right thing, just like Mordecai did. Sometimes we can be the worst friends to each other because we think sometimes that being an enabler is actually friendship. I don't want to hurt your feelings. I don't want to press you too far. And you don't realize that part of why we're here connected with each other is to help each other press. That's part of it. You don't need somebody to just agree with you on everything. Listen, you don't help anybody when you agree with emotions that hinder forward movement. When you agree with emotions that keep you in a place that do not deserve to be in a kingdom mind. When you agree with emotions that are contrary and counter to the plan and revealed will of God. When you help people to stay where they are and not to press, you got to check yourself. We often blatantly lie to ourselves that we're saving our friends' feelings. I don't want to hurt your feelings. When in reality, we lack courage. We lack boldness to speak truth to our own emotions. Yes, that would be hard for me to hear, but it doesn't mean I don't need to hear it. It doesn't mean like I don't need to say it. I didn't do that myself. It doesn't mean you're not preaching you're preaching Jesus. What he said for them to do is what you're supposed to tell them to do. What is right to do, what is righteous to do is written in this word. And when you know what is right to do, no matter how hard it is, that is the role of a true friend, is to speak truth. We're not looking out for people when we guide them wrong. We're actually looking out for ourselves. We're guarding ourselves when we agree with things that are counter. He refused it. When you refuse to hold people accountable, the weakness is in both of you. Whatever they said or did may be weak, but your weakness is connected to your response. How you responded matters. Listen, we happen to think that godly friendship is the same as friendship in the world. And that's what we imitate. We put our arms around brokenness instead of speaking a word of healing. We coddle things that are going to drag you down later, and we know it. And we just have a date. We set a date that I'm going to keep it real. We set a date that I'm going to be truthful, while the enemy is winning because his date is today, to lie to you, to tell you that you have tomorrow, that you can tell them the truth later. But the best friends you have are those who love you enough to be genuinely honest with you. That's exactly what God is saying. Sometimes a rebuke is appropriate, and you just got to know that. Sometimes just stand for anything is not what a true friend is about. Listen, when you look at what Mordecai did with Esther and what Paul did with Peter, Paul said, listen, I had to confront Peter to the face because what he was doing was hypocritical, which means I don't want him to stay in that place of hypocrisy. How much do you love somebody if you're cool with them staying in a place of eating with the hogs when they're supposed to be the head and not the tail? Listen, read the handwriting on the wall. There's upheaval everywhere we look. There's enemy everywhere, and the enemy is showing himself. And he's showing himself in every system created by man. But God said this, and this is what we need to get. Don't be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. No one is exempt from the attacks of this age. He tells Esther, don't you think for a second. I don't care how many songs you sing. I don't care how much oil you put on your head. I don't care how many prophets come to you and prophesy your safety. I promise you, there's going to be an attack against you. There's going to be an attack against your family. There's going to be an attack against your faith. Nobody's exempt. And he reminded Esther that she could not remain insulated from this decree more than anybody else. It's going to happen to us. We should not look at these things as some strange thing is happening to us. But we have to stand on this fact. Listen, it's a fact. It is better to trust in God. Better than to trust in man. I'm going to fear God and more than I'm going to fear man. And I've got to remember God's providential care for me and his rule over my life. Listen, I'm not going to be dictated by the fear of this king. That's exactly what Mordecai said. Do not walk in fear of man. God is calling you. And then he says, I'm up in the ante. I'm not going to accept or understand anything else but yes. Listen, there are times when it is, the best thing to do is to be silent, because your influence that you use with your friends is for their benefit. But in times of fear and in times of uncertainty, we can sometimes make priceless opportunities seem like something like a fire that we need to escape. Mordecai is identifying an opportunity. Mordecai is looking at this situation and saying, no, don't evacuate this house. Stay here in this flame. This is an opportunity. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, this was an opportunity. It looked like a fiery furnace that was going to burn them up. But God opened up that door to the furnace for them to walk around in it so that people could see his power in the flames. Listen, there's some flames around you now that God is actually saying, I want people to see you operate under pressure. I want people to see how favor works in distress. There's some things that are happening, and we look at favor and we look at the power of God, and it keeps us out of everything. But God says, I want people to see how I keep you through and keep you in things. I can walk you through the valley of the shadow of death, but you got to get through it. I'm going to be with you. This is an opportunity. I'm praying today that you do not miss your opportunity. Opportunity at fulfilling God's will and fulfilling the call that He's given us is right there in front of us. It's in front of us right now. We have opportunities to go out to the highways and byways in the most dangerous environment that maybe have ever been. But I can tell you right now, if we neglect these opportunities, Mordecai said something important. He says, don't think for a second that somebody else is not going to come in and deliver the Jews. One person is not going to stop the show. This privilege is yours today. But if you don't take it, it's going to be your loss. But God's people are still going to profit because God's going to send somebody else. God's purposes are much greater than the obedience or disobedience of one person. You know, the old saying, one monkey don't stop the show. That's true. God is not limited to you. But can you imagine what's happening right now? That the master of the universe is opening up a door for you to take a stand today in a time that is one of the most unpopular times ever. As you look at this, Christians are being associated with hate groups. Christians are being associated with the alt-right. Christians are being associated with people who call themselves believers but are doing things that are clearly counter to Christ's way. We're connected with hate. We're connected with intolerance. So I'm not saying go out there and do the song and dance so it makes people know that we're cool, that we're good. No, I want you to understand something. You got to take a stand for Christ today in a time that people are going to shout you down. In a world where people are going to eventually try to hunt people down because they're believers. We are where we are in God's purpose, whether it's in our work life, whether it's in our families, whether it's in our churches, for God's reasons. We are right where we are. We've come into the kingdom for a time such as this. This is not an accident that you're born. At the time that you're born, it's not an accident that your eyes have opened up to be able to see what you're seeing. And no matter how distressful it is, God's sovereignty is true. Don't you think for a second that you're going to escape. But He says, go back in there, go boldly in there and take a risk and watch and see how God can protect you, even in the inner sanctums, even in these secret places, even in these beds of hell. God is there with you. Oh yeah, stand up for Christ. And there's going to be persecution. Stand up for Christ. And they're going to hate you. Stand up for Christ. And there's going to be disagreement. But I can promise you this. You're going to see the favor of God. Do things you never expected. The king's heart is in the Lord's hands, not in Esther's hand. The king's heart's in the Lord's hand. And He says, I turn it however I will. Let's do something bold and watch and see what God is going to do in your whole life and for your whole family and for His people. God bless you. Have an awesome rest of your Sunday.